A mysterious distress call. The stars were quiet. In the far edge of the galaxy, nothing moved. Planets turned slowly around dying suns, and ancient ships drifted like ghosts. Space was cold, dark, and endless. But then, a voice broke the silence. It came through the old communication channels, carried by weak signals and fading static. A desperate message filled with fear and pain. This is Lorien Outpost. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Anyone, please help us. The voice belonged to a small alien colony deep in the outer zones. It was a place forgotten by the powerful empires and great councils. No one cared about colonies like this. It was too far, too weak, and too unimportant. But something terrible had happened there. The attack came from nowhere. Monsters called Rathuks huge. Violent beasts that destroyed everything in their path. Nobody knew where they came from. Ships exploded, homes burned, and the ground shook under the heavy steps of the creatures. The colonists screamed for help. They sent their distress call to the Intergalactic Council, but the Council ignored it. They were busy with politics, trade, talks, and border disputes. Saving a tiny colony wasn't their problem. The message reached the Varkan Empire. They listened and laughed. "Let them die," their commander said. "They're not worth the fuel it would take to reach them." Hope began to fade. The colony sent one final message before the communications went dark. "If anyone hears this, we beg you, save us." And somewhere, far across the stars, someone did hear it. On a strange, dangerous planet called Earth, the message arrived in the middle of the night, a place most aliens called a death world. Its lands were filled with deadly storms, wild beasts, and poisonous oceans. No alien dared to visit. Long ago, humanity had left the Council and built their own fleet. They were survivors of war, betrayal, and forgotten promises. For years, they stayed hidden. Rumors of Deathworlder ships haunted the galaxy. Stories spoke of war machines so powerful they could destroy moons and fight inside black holes. But no one had seen them in decades. Until now. The message reached Fleet Command, buried deep under the mountains of Earth. Red warning lights flashed as the signal played. Old officers listened in silence. They knew the voice. It was the same kind of fear they once felt when no one came to help them. Commander Zara Miles stood in the command room. She was tall, sharp-eyed, with a face marked by old battle scars. She watched the message and said nothing for a long moment. The room waited. Finally, Zara spoke. "Set a course for Lorien Outpost." The officers looked at each other. They knew what this meant. They had avoided the galaxy's wars for years. But now, someone had called for help, and humans remembered what it felt like to be abandoned. "Ready the fleet," Zara ordered. "Full combat alert." Within hours, the ancient shipyards of Earth came alive. Giant ships lifted from hidden hangars. Long, dark vessels armed with weapons no one else dared use. Their hulls were scarred. Their engines roared like angry beasts. The Deathworlder fleet was moving. 12 battleships, 6 carriers, and a flagship known as the Nightfall left orbit. They passed through old jump gates and vanished into deep space. As the fleet traveled, whispers spread across nearby sectors. "The Deathworlders are coming. Human warships." In Council space again? Who woke the monsters? No one dared stop them. In the colony of Lorien, the last survivors huddled together in underground shelters. The sky burned. Monsters roamed above. The smell of smoke and death filled the air. A young alien named Kirain clutched a broken radio. His hands trembled. "Anyone, please, help us," he whispered. Then the radio crackled. A cold, clear voice spoke. "Help is coming." Chiron's eyes widened. Who? Who are you? The voice replied, Humanity's Deathworlder fleet. At that moment, a sensor operator screamed. Strange shapes appeared in the sky. Ships, massive, dark, and silent, entered orbit above the planet. The alien survivors ran to the shelter's windows. Fear and hope mixed inside them. The ships had no bright colors, no flags, only dark metal and scarred armor. They floated like predators above the burning world. One of the survivors whispered in shock, "The stories, they're true." The humans had arrived, and with them came fury. Asterisk. The arrival of the Deathworlder sky above Lorien Outpost had turned black. Smoke from burning buildings filled the air, and the ground shook every time a Rathic beast took a step. The alien survivors stayed hidden deep under the ground, afraid. To even breathe too loudly back, nobody expected anyone to come. The last call for help had vanished into the stars, and silence followed. The colony leaders believed it was over. "No one is coming," they whispered to each other. But far above the planet, the darkness in space moved. Unknown to the people of Lorien, giant shapes drifted silently through the black. The Deathworlder fleet had arrived. These ships weren't like the clean, shiny warships of the Intergalactic Council. They weren't like the colorful battle cruisers of the Varkan Empire. They were old, scarred, and carried names written in dead languages. Their hulls were dented, their paint scorched, and strange marks covered their sides. The flagship, the Nightfall, was the largest of them all. It was so big it blocked out part of the planet's sun, casting a long, terrifying shadow over the burning colony. The alien survivors in the shelters noticed the sudden darkness and looked up at the monitors. What is that? One of them gasped. Sensors tried to scan the ships, but every reading came back strange. No identification, no communication, just a cold presence hanging above them like a storm about to break. Inside the Nightfall's command center, Commander Zara Miles stood before a large display, showing the colony's surface. Her eyes were calm, but her voice was sharp. Deploy the drop pods. Across the fleet, hangars opened. Hundreds of black pods, shaped like thick metal coffins, shot out of the ships. They fell toward the planet like falling stars. No warnings, no greetings, just the silent promise of violence. From below, the survivors saw them streak across the sky, leaving long trails of fire behind them. Are they more enemies? One alien asked in fear. Kieran, the young alien who had first heard. The human voice on the radio shook his head. "No," he said softly. "That's them." The pod smashed into the ground with thunderous force. Dust and debris exploded into the air. The Rathics turned their huge heads and roared, charging toward the landing sites. For a moment, everything went still. Then the pod doors blew open. From the smoke and dirt stepped the Deathworlder soldiers. They were taller than most other species. Their armor was thick, ugly, and scarred. Their helmets glowed faintly. Some wore helmets, others did not. Their faces told the same story, a life of war. Old wounds, hard eyes. Not a trace of fear. One of them, a soldier named Jax Mercer, removed his helmet, revealing a face marked by deep scars. His mouth twisted into a half-smile as a massive Rathic beast charged at him. Without waiting for orders, he grabbed a plasma axe from his back and ran straight at the creature. "Is nothing," he muttered to himself. "Not after what we faced back home." As soldiers spread out, they moved like predators, firing strange weapons that left no sound but dropped the Rathics where they stood. Some carried old, brutal-looking blades made for close combat. Blood sprayed the ground. Smoke rose higher. Inside the shelters, the survivors could hear the battle above. Roars, explosions, and a new, unfamiliar sound. Human voices shouting war cries in a language Most of them didn't understand. The alien leader, Aaron, looked at the monitors in disbelief. They're winning? The humans didn't fight like other armies. They didn't form lines or wait for orders. They charged directly into the heart of the enemy, as if death meant nothing to them. Even when injured, they refused to fall back. Some laughed as they fought, enjoying the madness. Back aboard the Nightfall, Commander Zara watched calmly. An officer turned to her. "Should we announce ourselves, Commander? Should we open communication with the colony leaders?" Zara's reply was cold. "Not yet. Let them see what we do first. Let them remember who we are." The officer nodded and turned back to the display. More pods fell from the sky. More soldiers emerged. And now, at the edges of the system, sensors picked up something even worse. The main Deathworlder fleet had arrived. Even larger ships, older and more dangerous, slipped through space like ancient leviathans. The survivors below had no idea what kind of fleet hung above them. No one did. For now, all they could do was watch as these strange, terrifying humans destroyed creatures no other species had dared face. And somewhere deep inside, a terrible thought came to every alien survivor's mind. If this is what they do to monsters, what would they do to us if we crossed them? The Deathworlder ground assault the ground was broken and smoking. Craters marked the places where the human drop pods had landed, leaving scars in the earth. The once green fields of Lorian Outpost were now nothing but ash, dirt, and the crushed remains of alien homes. Above them, black clouds of smoke drifted slowly through the sky. The remains of alien ships burned like floating candles, their wreckage falling in quiet pieces. And then came the sound. A deep, steady hum. It wasn't the sound of machines, nor the cries of the Rathic beasts. It was the slow, heavy footsteps of something dangerous. The Deathworlder soldiers were moving. Alien survivors huddled in their underground shelters, watching through cracked monitors. What they saw made their skin crawl. These humans weren't like anyone they'd seen before. They didn't move cautiously. They didn't stay in formation. They spread out, hunting like predators, each one moving with brutal purpose. Some carried heavy weapons, thick cannons that spat silent blue bolts. Others held crude, ancient-looking blades stained with old blood. A few even wielded weapons taken from fallen enemies. Clubs, hooks, serrated swords, and every one of them wore that same look. Cold, sharp eyes, as if nothing could surprise them anymore. A group of Rathic beasts stormed toward the nearest soldiers, claws tearing up the ground, their huge mouths wide with rage. The humans didn't flinch. One soldier, a tall woman named Alara Cross, stepped forward, holding a plasma pike. She didn't wait for orders. She didn't back away. When the largest Rathic lunged, she sidestepped, stabbed the pike into its throat, and used its falling body as a shield against the others. Behind her, Jax Mercer laughed. "You see that?" He shouted to the others. "You call these monsters? I've wrestled worse on Earth." Another soldier, Grim, fired a single shot from his heavy rifle. The beam cut clean through two charging beasts. "Keep moving," he said quietly. The Deathworlders pressed forward, never stopping. The Rathics tried everything. They swarmed in huge numbers. They attacked from the sides. They sent their biggest creatures to crush the humans. It didn't matter. The Deathworlders were built for this. Born on Earth, a planet filled with poison jungles, ice storms, firestorms, and predators larger than houses. These soldiers had grown up learning one thing: survive or die. The aliens watching from underground could hardly believe their eyes. Kieran, still holding his broken radio, whispered, "They fight like they don't fear death." Aaron, the colony leader, wiped sweat from his brow. "They don't," he answered. "They're Deathworlders. Back on the surface, the battle only grew more brutal. A massive Rathic war beast, easily 4 stories tall, charged through a burning structure. It roared, mouth filled with jagged teeth. Most armies would retreat. Most soldiers would call for heavy air support. But Commander Zara Miles, watching from the ship above, spoke calmly into her com. "Mercer, it's yours." Jax grinned, gladly. He threw down his rifle, pulled a brutal war axe from his back, a weapon from old Earth wars, and sprinted toward the beast. The alien survivors could only watch in horror, as one man faced a creature that size .JAX didn't slow down. He dodged a swipe of the beast's claws, leaped onto a fallen ship, and from there launched himself onto the creature's back. The Rathic roared, twisting and thrashing. JAX clung to it, then buried his axe into the base of its skull. Blue-black blood exploded into the air. The giant beast crashed to the ground, shaking the earth. For a moment, silence followed. Then the other Deathworlders let out a rough cheer, not of celebration, but of satisfaction. They liked this. It was the kind of battle they missed. In the shelters below, some of the alien survivors began to feel something new. Not just fear, but awe. "They're unstoppable," one whispered. "They're not soldiers," another said. "They're monsters themselves." Zara watched it all from the Nightfall's bridge. Her officers stood in silence. "Send a message to the fleet," she said. "Secure the surface. No survivors among the Rathics. The colony is ours now." As her order spread, more ships entered orbit. Massive battleships with ancient names like Ironwake, ***, the Wounded Beast ***. Secrets of humanity's fury, the ground of Lorien. Outpost was no longer a battlefield. It was a graveyard. The once mighty Rathic beasts lay scattered across the ruined land. Some burned. Some were crushed. Others lay in pieces, where the Deathworlders had ended them. But even now, the humans didn't lower their weapons. They moved through the wreckage like hunters searching for the last signs of danger. The alien survivors inside, the shelters could only stare through their monitors. Everything they believed about war, power, and fear had changed in one day. No one had ever fought like this. No one had ever fought like them. Kieran still gripped his broken radio, his hands trembling. The screen before him showed a group of Deathworlder soldiers walking calmly among the fallen monsters. One soldier stopped near a shelter's hidden entrance. He glanced down, as if sensing the frightened aliens below. Kieran's heart almost stopped, but the soldier simply placed a metal marker into the ground. A warning sign written in a language Kieran didn't understand. Then he moved on. Why? Why did they come here? Kieran asked softly. Eor, the colony leader, looked exhausted. His eyes bloodshot, his face covered in sweat and dust. Because no one else would. There was a long silence. Then, to everyone's surprise, a message appeared on the shelter's display screen. It was from the human fleet. A direct transmission. The message was simple. Commander Zara Miles requests to speak. Aaron hesitated. His advisors warned against it. "We don't know what they want," one said. "They could kill us next," another whispered. But Aaron knew it didn't matter. The humans controlled the skies, the land, everything. He gave the order. Put her through. A screen flickered, and the face of Commander Zara Miles appeared. She looked as cold and sharp as the stories had warmed. Short hair, scarred skin, pale gray eyes that seemed to see right through them. "Lorien outpost survivors," she began, her voice calm but heavy. "The Rathic threat has been removed. Your colony secure. For now." Aaron spoke carefully. "Why did you help us?" Zara's eyes didn't blink. "Because we remember," she answered. The shelter room fell silent. "Remember what?" Aaron asked. And then Zara spoke of Earth. of ancient battles where humanity had once begged for help, sending their own desperate calls to the stars, and how no one came. How the Intergalactic Council ignored them. How empires like the Varkan had mocked their pleas, not how humanity survived anyway. She told them of the Scorch Wars, where oceans boiled, of the bleeding sun siege, where half of Earth's surface turned to glass, of monsters bigger than mountains, and plagues that burned through entire cities. And through it all, no help ever came. We built our strength in the dark, Zara said, when no one cared if we lived or died. We made weapons others feared to even design. We fought battles others believed impossible. And now we choose when to answer. The survivors listened in shock. They had heard the old tales about Earth, the cursed planet, the death world. But hearing it from the lips of its commander made it feel real in a way they hadn't imagined. And you saved us? Because you remember being abandoned? Aaron asked. Zara's face remained cold, but for a brief moment something flashed. In her eyes, not kindness, not mercy, but something deeper. We didn't come for you, she said. We came for the monsters. You were just in the way. She cut the transmission. Back aboard the Nightfall, Zara stood silently on the bridge. An officer approached. Commander, message from the Council, he said. They demand to know what we're doing in Council territory. Zara smirked. Let them come and ask me in person. Behind her, the stars shifted. More human ships arrived. Older, bigger. Ships whose hulls carried the scars of ancient wars, whose names were forbidden to speak in Council records. Ships like the Ironwake, the Forgotten Blade, and the Wounded Beast. One by one, they entered orbit, each one a reminder that humanity had not disappeared. They had simply waited. And now, the galaxy would remember. On the ground, the alien survivors gathered at the edges of their shelters. The battlefield was quiet, but the air still felt heavy. Some wept in relief. Some trembled in fear. Kiren, his voice small, whispered, If this is how they fight their enemies, what happens to those they call friends? No one answered. Far above, Deathworlder warships hung in the blackness, their weapons silent for now, but never at rest. And in every heart, alien and human, the same thought grew. War was coming. The final battle night had fallen over Lorien. Outpost, though the sky remained lit by the burning wreckage of ships and buildings. The ground was stained with blackened blood. Fires crackled in the distance, and the air hung thick with smoke and ash. The colony's survivors thought the worst was over. They were wrong. Deep in the jungle outside the colony, something huge stirred. Sensors from the human fleet picked it. Up first, a massive life form, moving faster than anything that size should be able to. It was coming straight for the colony. On the bridge of the Nightfall, an officer's voice broke the silence. Commander, it's the Alpha. Commander Zara Miles leaned over the console. The readings showed a creature bigger than any Rathuk the Deathworlders had faced. Its heat signature glowed bright red. Its heart rate was steady and unafraid. Zara didn't blink. Squads, prepare for final engagement, she ordered. Bring it down. On the surface, the Deathworlder soldiers heard the call. JAX Mercer loaded a fresh power cell into his plasma axe. About time. He grinned. Elara cross-checked her long rifle and spoke into her comm. Let's finish this. The alien survivors, in the underground shelters, could feel the earth tremble as the massive creature approached. The monitors flickered, the image of a beast too big to fit in the screen. Thick armored skin, horns like jagged blades, eyes burning like fire. The Alpha. Wrath okay? It roared. A sound so loud it cracked the walls of the shelters. The survivors screamed. The Deathworlders did not. They moved in fast, surrounding the area, setting traps, placing explosive charges, and choosing their firing positions. But even with their experience, they knew this would not be easy. Back on the bridge, Zara spoke to her officers. "Prepare the doom ring," she ordered. The officer hesitated. "Commander, that weapon? It's banned by every treaty in the sector." Zara's voice was ice. "Treaties didn't save Earth." The officer nodded. On the surface, the Alpha burst through a shattered building, crushing everything in its path. Deathworlder weapons fired at once. Plasma bolts, explosives, and heavy rifle rounds struck its hide, but it kept coming. One soldier was caught by its claws and thrown like a ragdoll. The others didn't stop. Jacques, Mercer, and Grimm moved in close. Alara fired from a rooftop, aiming for its eyes. A plasma bolt struck, burning one of them out. The beast howled and smashed into a tower, bringing it down. "Hold your ground." Jacques roared. Above them, the Deathworlder warships adjusted position. Massive cannons charged, their tips glowing red-hot. Inside the nightfall, Zara's voice echoed over the comms. "On my mark." The beast was bleeding now, its movements slower, but still deadly. JX, covered in dust and blood, looked up at the sky. "Any time now, Commander." Mark. The night sky split open. Red beams of light rained down from orbit. The Doom Rain, a weapon so powerful it melted ground and turned entire cities to ash. The beams struck the Alpha, burning deep into its flesh, leaving massive craters. The monster screamed one last time before collapsing, its body breaking the earth beneath it. That silence followed. Smoke rose into the night. The surviving Deathworlders lowered their weapons. The alien survivors slowly emerged from the shelters, blinking against the light. What they saw wasn't just a battlefield. It was a message. Humanity had power no one else dared use. Eor Han, his voice hoarse, looked at the Deathworlders standing among the wreckage. You saved us." Jacques Mercer wiped blood from his face and stared at the alien leader. "We didn't do it for you," he growled. "We did it because no one leaves a monster like that roaming the stars." Back aboard the Nightfall, Zara received another urgent message from the Galactic Council. "You've broken half a dozen treaties. Withdraw your fleet immediately or face consequences." Zara smiled coldly and sent a single reply: "Come and try." As the Deathworlder fleet prepared to leave orbit, the alien survivors watched them go, knowing the galaxy would never forget what happened here. And deep in every corner of the stars, species whispered one warning: never call a Deathworlder for help unless you're prepared to pay the price. The galaxy would remember this night, and the Council would soon regret waking the sleeping monsters of Earth. The aftermath and a warning: the battle was over. The land around Lorien Outpost was silent. The fires slowly died out, leaving only blackened earth and ruined buildings. Smoke hung in the sky like a heavy blanket. The bodies of the Rethics lay where they fell, some still smoldering from the terrible firepower of the Deathworlder fleet. The survivors stood among the wreckage, looking at the world they barely recognized. Their homes were gone, their streets shattered. The jungle nearby burned quietly in the distance. And above them, in the cold black sky, the human warships remained. No one knew what would happen next. Inside the Nightfall, Commander Zara Miles stared at the battle report. No Deathworlder soldier had died. A few were injured, but nothing serious. It was a victory, but it didn't feel like one. Zara wasn't here for glory. She was here for a message. Her officer approached. "Commander, the Council has sent a fleet. 12 warships. They'll arrive within the hour." Zara smirked. "Let them. They won't dare attack us. Not after this." She walked to the main display, showing the wounded colony below. Open a channel to the alien leaders. On the surface, the remaining colony heads gathered in what was left of their council hall. Dust and ash clung to their clothes. Their eyes were hollow, filled with shock and confusion. The screen flickered. Zara's face appeared. Her voice was quiet, but sharp enough to cut through the silence. "Your colony is secure," she said. "We'll leave within the hour." Aaron, weak and exhausted, stepped forward. "We owe you our lives." Zara shook her head. "You owe us nothing." There was a long pause. The alien leaders exchanged nervous glances. "Then why help us?" Aaron asked. Zara's eyes narrowed. "Because we remember," she said again. "And because you need to understand what walks among your stars." She gestured to the ships behind her. "We are the children of a death world," she said, her voice like steel. "A place where survival means crushing the weak and outrunning monsters twice your size. We are what happens when the galaxy turns its back on a species and leaves them to burn." The room stayed silent. "We didn't come for peace," Zara continued. "We came to remind the Council what we are. You survived today because we let you." She leaned closer to the screen. "Never forget this moment. Because next time, if it's the Council calling for help, we might not answer." The transmission cut. A hush fell over the room. Outside, the Deathworlder soldiers packed their gear, boarded their ships, and left without another word. No celebration, no victory speeches. Only the cold efficiency of people used to surviving battles, others called impossible dot, as the Deathworlder fleet lifted into orbit. Kieran watched from a broken rooftop the massive ships slipped into space, their hulls marked with ancient scars and battle trophies. The ship names flickered across local scanners. The Ironwake, the Wounded Beast, the Forgotten, Blade, the Nightfall, names whispered in every dark corner of the galaxy and feared by those who believed them long gone. Kiren spoke softly to no one. "They're not gone. They were just waiting." And he was right. Across the stars, the Galactic Council's fleet arrived too late. They scanned the surface, saw the bodies of monsters, the melted craters from Forbidden's weapons, and the signs of Deathworlder presence. But the humans were already gone. The Council sent messages into the darkness, demanding answers. No reply came. The Deathworlders had made their point. On Earth, deep beneath the mountains of their ancient cities, humanity prepared. They knew the Council would try something foolish soon, but that was fine, because Deathworlders weren't made to ask for peace. They were made for war-dot, and when the galaxy called next time, it would learn. All over again, the terrible price of waking monsters. Asterisk echoes in the stars far away from Lorien Outpost, in the cold, empty regions between star systems. A lone communication beacon flickered to life. Message pulsed through the void. It wasn't from the Council. It wasn't from the alien colonies. It was from the archivists of the void, ancient record keepers who stayed hidden, watching the galaxy's history unfold without ever interfering. And their message was short. The Deathworlders have returned. Across distant empires, rulers and warlords received the warning. Old generals who had fought in the ancient wars against humanity felt their blood run cold. Old records were opened, dusty files that spoke of what the humans truly were and what they had survived. On a Council world, a young ambassador read the reports in horror. They fought under a black sky when their oceans burned and lived. They walked through the ruins of their own cities, built new weapons from the bones of fallen beasts, and kept fighting. We left them in the dark, and now the dark walks with them. Panic spread. A secret meeting was called in a hidden chamber of the Galactic Council Station. Representatives of the strongest species gathered, not to decide what to do about humanity, but whether it was too late to do anything at all. Some wanted peace. Others spoke of war. An ancient warlord, older than most stars, spoke quietly. There was a time when we could have destroyed them. That time is gone. Now we can only choose whether we die fighting them or kneel. The room went silent. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of deep space, aboard the Nightfall, Commander Zara Miles stood alone in her private quarters. Before her, a map of the galaxy shimmered. Red marks glowed over old battle sites. Green lights marked the surviving colonies of her people. But the most important lights were blue, signals from long-lost human ships believed destroyed, but they were moving now. One by one, ancient warships, missing for centuries, had begun to activate. The dead fleet. Zara watched in silence. They remember too, she whispered. A soft knock came at the door. Jocks Mercer entered, still bruised from the last fight. The crew's asking what's next. He said. Zara turned, her expression unreadable. We remind the galaxy why it feared us. And with that, the fleet's engines roared to life once more. They weren't running. They weren't hiding. They were coming. Across every corner of the galaxy, people looked to the stars that night, sensing a terrible truth. A force had awakened. One born of death, betrayal, and ancient fire. A simple message appeared across shadow networks and hidden channels. If Deathworlders walk the stars again, no world is safe. But on Earth, among the black seas, savage forests, and storm-lit skies, a single old saying was whispered by every soldier, elder, and child. Mercy is for the weak. We remember everything. And so the story wasn't over. It was just beginning.